We're finally here. All 5 videos are now up. Let's get to know Brianna Young, the ship's pilot. Although, and this is just a guess here, there's probably at least one more pilot and at least a couple of people around who have some sense of how to fly the Cassiopeia. These missions have to be built around redundancy, after all. Of course, this is the one video we've already seen clips of, as a section of it was shown on a shattered screen in the teaser, cleverly hinting that these videos were on the way. So let's load it up, audio first as always.
I've always wanted to fly. The joy of it, the freedom of it, to just take your life in your hands and soar. I think that's in us all, isn't it?
The celebration of flight as a metaphor for freedom from life's woes. If we didn't already know that she's got a tragic backstory related to her father's death, this would certainly suggest she's excited to be running away from something, and not just the dying Earth.
At least that's what my dad taught me.
So this attitude is a family trait, it would seem. We already knew that she's following in her father's footsteps, given his history with Stafford. And given her wistful delivery of these lines, it's safe to say she's still not over his loss. And traveling to space the way he did is clearly taking an emotional toll on her.
But there's more to it than that.
It's been clear in all of these that we're getting responses to a question we didn't hear. And the "there's more to it than that" suggests that this question was about why they wanted to be on the mission. It's very likely the same question Yosef was asked in the previous video, which makes the next part of her answer very interesting.
Finally, they just saw one Earth. That's always given me hope for us all.
Unlike the other videos we've seen, there's clearly a whole section of the answer removed from this one. But we get enough of her line to understand that she's clearly talking about the overview effect, which came up in last week's video as well. She's restating the core idea of the effect, which is that all petty concepts like nations and ideologies tend to melt away when you're forced to consider how small the Earth is when compared to the vastness of the cosmos. I won't be surprised if she and Joseph get along very well, considering how closely they're stating the same worldview. The fundamental takeaway from Brianna's audio clips is how nervous and unsure of herself she seems. When asked why she wants to do something, she responds with her father's opinion, followed by a famous example of how other people felt while looking back at the Earth. This seems like a person who's undervaluing herself, and I'm curious to find out why. After all, she's an accomplished enough space pilot that she was chosen to take part in a mission that the fate of the Earth hangs upon. Why would she still be so nervous about speaking up for herself? Is it because of the legacy of her space hero father? And she worries that she was only chosen for the mission because his best friend Stafford is the commander of it? These are questions that are going to get answered when I read the email, aren't they? Let's take a look at the visuals, which include our first truly strange phenomenon with the numbers I've been obsessing over. No, it's not that numbers are on the border. Those are all consistent. It's the time code. First off, we finally have our order in which the interviews were recorded. They start with Stafford at 13 hours and 30 minutes, move on to Sam half an hour of recording later, then Joseph 15 minutes after Sam. Then we get our biggest gap before we hit Laura at 15 hours, and finally Brianna's video happens half an hour later at 15:30, making her the last of the recording, at least among the characters that we've seen. Now let's take a closer look at Brianna's time code, because it's a little strange. Even though they're interrupted by corrupted data cut-ins, every other character's audio clips represent full statements that we hear basically every part of. And the time codes above their heads match the actual length of the videos perfectly. This isn't the case with Brianna Young's testimonial. After talking about her father's worldview, we get a series of cut-ins that last 6 seconds, and the time code at the top of the screen reflects that gap. But here's the thing. When we cut back to her, she's reached the end of a story about the overview effect, And no matter how abbreviated her telling of that story was, there's no conceivable way it could have taken just 6 seconds. This means that a chunk of her response was lost, but the timecode does not reflect that missing time. Is this a case of the developers making an error and forgetting to change the timecode, or should we suspect that the original footage was being tampered with, beyond the corrupted data messages that keep popping up? That's going to be an interesting thing to watch for. In addition to the timecode weirdness, Brianna has the strangest bio screen since Laura. Where Laura just had a split second of the biometric anomaly and the computer not being able to confirm her identity, along with us being denied a look at her DNA, Brianna gets it far worse after her video cut-ins. Not only do we get the biometric anomaly and the failure to identify her for a few seconds, we get a before and after look at her DNA. It's worth noting that in the before DNA, she's got fewer orange spots than any other character. But when we get a look at the corrupted DNA, not only is it absolutely covered in red, but the orange spot from the regular DNA is glowing almost white. Obviously, we have no idea what this means just yet, but it's definitely interesting and probably meaningful that they saved this DNA change until the final character video. Oh, and the message over the DNA says error loading data. Now, let's get a look at the cut-ins, shall we? First off, it's hilarious that they punctuate her talking about the joy of soaring with someone getting blasted into space. That's comedy gold right there. Excellent work, editors. Then they follow up in Us All with a corrupted eyeball looking around and a screaming face surrounded by goop. Again, really good matching. After that, there's more footage from the trailer, the goop monster behind her, the goop version of her, Brianna facing her doppelganger, the dead space tentacle scene, and Brianna covering her mouth while looking at something, possibly a mirror? Obviously, we'll have to wait and see on that one. So what can we say based on the video errors? The first and last videos are the most corrupted, and the only ones that feature identification errors. But when you arrange them by timecode, it suggests that the videos are getting more degraded and full of errors the further you go, since Brianna's is the most damaged and the last recorded. So the deeper we get into the story, the worse things are going to get, which is honestly a pretty safe assumption for just storytelling structure. Now, let's look at the email, which will hopefully not make me look like too much of an overreaching chump the way Joseph's did. First off, we got the fact that Brianna works directly for Corinth. Again, it's a little strange that such an important mission for the future of humanity is being led by what seems to be a private corporation. And I'm interested to see how that plays into the narrative later on. I really enjoy the used to be here, suggesting that the second goop-based Brianna is going to be an important figure in the story beyond just a threatening monster in a few scenes. Here we see the confirmation of what that line in the video meant. She's defining herself based on her father's achievements, forcing us to wonder if she's ever taken a moment to consider who she is. If she's the best pilot they have, then hopefully she won't think that she's on the mission just because of her family connections. I will say though, it's super weird to see a British character being listed as being part of a soccer team, rather than calling it football. If you wanted confirmation that Corinth is an America First company, there you have it. And here we go. She's trying to live up to her late father's legacy, and likely his expectations for her. I'd assume that her father died on a mission, but passed away suggests a less sudden departure, unless they were being extremely euphemistic. With Stafford as a father figure, the question of whether she deserves to be on the mission is almost certainly going to come up. So yeah, she has to figure out who she is, something that's going to be made difficult by the fact that there will frequently be two of her. And we end with the quote that started the video, lacking the brutal reveal that it was something her father used to say. So that's the playable cast. I'm excited about all of them. No sign of a Rachel King or Mark from The Devil in Me in the bunch. That was a weirdly cruel drive-by of Mark. Seriously, though, it's time to start getting very excited. We've gotten a look at all of the playable characters, except for the prologue people, frustratingly. We can look forward to more videos and coverage in the coming weeks and months as we get closer and closer to launch. And of course, I'll be here to cover all of it. But until then, I've been the Hidden Object Guru. Thanks for watching. If you had a good time and you'd like to see more, there's buttons coming up to help with that. Questions, comments, your own thoughts on 80/20, go in the comment section below the video. Play my game, Clown in the Woods, at itch.io. It's a blast. We'll see you back here for more Directive 80/20. But until then, I'll say that's right. Au revoir.